Welcome to Howling with the Wolf, everybody. I'm the Wolf, Cameron Wolf, ESPN reporter out here in Miami. Another interesting week in Miami Dolphins land. Another fun week across the NFL. We have plenty to talk about. We're going to go ahead and get into the meat of the bone. As always, I'm going to go ahead and jump on different topics that I've learned about and that I want to talk about throughout the beat. You guys look at that question bar on the right side of the bar and go ahead and feel free to ask whatever you want. If you're a Dolphins fan, feel free to ask a bunch of Dolphins questions. If you root for the Buffalo Bills, we can talk about the Bills. So whatever you guys want to talk about, we'll talk about for the next 20 minutes or so. And, let's talk some football. So first things I want to get into are a couple Miami Dolphins related topics. And one thing I've noticed since I've covered this team, and I've covered this team, I guess, for about 3 months now, is there always seems to be drama with this Miami Dolphins team, and it's unlike any other team that I believe that I've ever covered. And I've covered the Denver Broncos through a Super Bowl run, and then the year after, and then I've covered the Tennessee Titans last season, and I've done a little bit of work in different other different sports as well. But nothing like the Miami Dolphins, where it seems like even through the ups and downs of what has been a mediocre season so far on the football field, there always seems to be something storyline worthy. And it's good for us as the media because it creates interest. But this week, the two big topics out of Miami Dolphins land were one, the Reshad Jones situation, where Reshad Jones, if you're not familiar, the Dolphins Pro Bowl safety, decided not to re-enter the game last Sunday against the New York Jets. Just said that essentially I'm done. After 10 snaps, Matt Burke, the Dolphins defensive coordinator, was rotating his players. They got Minkah Fitzpatrick, who's a really really talented rookie player who had been playing 60 to 70% of the snaps, and they needed to find a way to get him on the field. And it came at an expense of Reshad Jones in the fourth drive. They rotated T.J. McDonald out in the third drive, and essentially what ended up happening was Reshad Jones didn't end up re-entering the game. So it was really puzzling for us. We thought he was possibly benched, and we weren't quite sure. And all we heard from Adam Gase after the game was that he pulled himself out. So Reshad Jones talked to us on Wednesday and explained, partially his side of the story. He said he's never been a quitter, and he said that he has no regrets about the situation. None of this adds up. None of this adds up. The Dolphins say they're past this. Matt Burke talked on Thursday, and he didn't say much, but his body language may have said a little bit more. He obviously didn't want to be there. He was irritated by the questions. He was frustrated that a lot of the game plan time that they had, playing Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay this week, enough challenge on his own, but that was spent on the Reshad Jones situation. And as a human, you could sort of empathize where Matt Burke is coming from in that particular situation. But he ended up being in the thick of this thing because Adam Gase referenced him several times on Monday when they sort of changed the tune and said that, hey, don't call Reshad Jones a quitter. Don't be easy to make judgment on him because there's more factors involved. And he referenced Matt Burke's communication with players and this sort of thing. So now, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of what did Matt Burke do? How was there a disconnect? And all Matt Burke would say today was that there was some sort of disconnect. He didn't want to go any further. And I think this whole situation is really drug out for a whole week because there hasn't been a concrete answer on what happened. If Reshad Jones decided that, hey, I'm not coming out of the game, or you pulled me out of the game, I'm staying out of the game, and that's my decision, essentially he quit on his team, what he said he didn't do. And if there was something else that Burke did, what is that? Was it disrespectful with Jones? What sort of thing was going on there? So there's still a lot that we don't know about this situation. Obviously, we've got to move on at some point and move towards football. But they said they're moving past it. They said they've talked to guys. The teammates have all talked together. Coaches have talked together. The whole situation is a little weird to me. You got a guy who's a 9-year player, a guy who's one of the leaders on the team, a guy who really respects his name and what he's known for, and he doesn't come back in the game. And you got a defensive coordinator who's been in the league for 15 years, and supposedly there's some sort of rift there, but we don't know exactly what that is. So that whole situation is something that that we'll continue to watch, particularly if the Dolphins continue to rotate. Because I'll tell you what, they have 3 starting caliber safeties, and I talked about this on my film review earlier this week on Facebook. If you hadn't seen it, TJ McDonald is playing extremely well, and I know for Dolphins fans they like to use TJ McDonald as sort of the scapegoat because he may not be as great in coverage as Minkah Fitzpatrick or Reshad Jones, but he is playing extremely well. They have 3 starting caliber safeties, and 2 of them, and Reshad Jones and TJ McDonald, are strong safeties, and Minkah Fitzpatrick is free safety. They got to figure out how to make it work. And I'm going to have a story coming out Friday on Minkah Fitzpatrick and all he does in his defense and exactly why he needs to be on the field 100% of the snaps. But they've also got 2 really good safeties in Reshad Jones and TJ McDonald. And yeah, you're going to have to miss some time. You're going to have to come out from time to time. And, maybe you're swallowing some ego, maybe you're swallowing some pride, but, that's a situation they've got to deal with. So I may touch on that a little later, but I want to go ahead and get to the Ryan Tannehill issue. Big quarterback news this week. We got Ryan Tannehill spoke with us, graciously on Wednesday for the first time, and we had been hoping to speak with him for a bit, and obviously, predictably he was frustrated by the injury, but he talked on Wednesday and he revealed quite a bit. He was actually forthright and honest, more than I expected him to be, and his tone was sort of, generally that, hey, I'm still feeling pain with this injury. I'm still dealing with this. I still know that, I may be still hurting, still in pain, still feeling something when I'm ready to come back. But my goal is November 25th versus Indy. That really perked up my ears. Hey, you're feeling pain in your shoulder? You think you're going to come back in 2.5 weeks? So I talked to a couple of medical professionals. I talked to Dr. David Chow, who used to be the Chargers team doctor. And I talked to Stefania Bell, ESPN, NFL medical analyst. I talked to both of them on Wednesday to get their thoughts on Tannehill. And the overriding thought is that, hey, the Dolphins are being overly optimistic with this timeline. They're saying November 25th, and yeah, that's within the realm of possibility, but it doesn't seem likely. He's got to be able to throw, for a period of time before he's able to come into game action. And you're not supposed to feel pain as a thrower. Yeah, Ryan Tannehill is a really tough guy. He'll tell you that, hey, I want to fight through this thing. But shoulders, as Stefania Bell explained to me, it's a really compact motion and a compact and natural motion so that when you go through your throwing motion so quick, you're typically unable to fight through and have the same pass as you normally would if you weren't feeling pain there. So yeah, you could be a super tough guy. You could shoot up with painkillers, whatever. But if you feel pain at the top of that throw, it's going to change where you're going with the ball, even if it's a split second. So if I hit here and I'm like, the ball is going to come out differently than maybe I would have expected before. So there are a lot of questions about whether Ryan Tannehill will come back this season. And will he be effective? Like, that's a legitimate question at this point, no matter how much the Miami Dolphins are saying that, hey, he's definitely going to be back this year. We're hoping that it's November. It's a possibility that we don't see Ryan Tannehill out in the field this season. And I think it's much more likely that we see him in December than November when, the goal for him to return is. So buckle up, get ready for at least 1, probably 2 more games of Brock, and maybe even longer after that. So, this Ryan Tannehill injury thing's got to be frustrating for him. He's going to miss his 25th out of his last 30 starts. And this is for a guy who thinks he's the QB1, the future of this Miami Dolphins franchise. And this is a franchise that's got to figure out his quarterback situation. And they've got to figure it out soon. This team should be tired of mediocre. I've only been here for 3 months, and I'm tired of them being mediocre. So I think as a franchise, you're going to want to see, and I see you guys' questions. I'm going to get to them shortly. I think you're going to want to see a quarterback who you can count on as far as durability and count on to win you games when things start to go wrong. And that's my testament of whether you have a true franchise quarterback. What happens when your O-lineman, your starting left tackle, gets hurt? What happens when you lose your starting receiver? What happens when you're down 2 starters? What happens when you're down 17 points and nobody around you seems to be playing well? That's the type of quarterback I'm looking for to lead my roster. So I think the Dolphins, whatever happens with the Tannehill situation, have to be looking for a quarterback moving forward. And I think that this situation is probably depressing Tannehill to try to return earlier than he should. So if he does try to return, look out for his throwing motion and see if he's trying to adjust things to sort of compensate for the injury. But I'm just not, I'm not ready to say that he's close. I don't think he's close to returning. And I think a lot of it is just hope, on the Dolphin side of it. So a couple of you guys' questions. Thank you guys as always for joining me on these chats. You can always follow me on Twitter, on Facebook, as you see below. Follow me my YouTube channel, Howling with the Wolf. This is a thing that I did starting out in Tennessee, and I want to bring this to Miami at the next level. So I appreciate you guys joining me. And the question part of it is always fun because I can talk directly to you. And I'll start off with Felipe's question. Felipe Alzamora, sorry, hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Do you think Tannehill's done for the season with the recent news about the tear? If he doesn't come back this season, do you think the Dolphins finally move on? Really good question. I touched on some of this, through my long ass monologue that I had earlier. But I think that, it's like I said, it's more likely from what I've heard from, Ryan Tannehill's mouth, from what I've heard from the two medical professionals that I spoke with last night, and just from looking at the facts that we know in the case, I think it's much more likely that you see Ryan Tannehill return in December than November. But I'm not quite sure, for the season yet. I think that, the fact that he has pain in his right shoulder is troublesome. I know that, he's a super tough guy. We joked about it in the presser yesterday about how he had this tough guy label and then he got hurt and everybody's like, he's fragile. He's still a super tough guy. He still wants to be known as a tough guy. But shoulder pain, your quarterback, no. Put on the stop sign. Be safe. Return to go. Do not collect $200. These are not great signs for a quarterback when these things happen. So I think that, there's a lot of optimism or maybe overly optimistic goal, maybe to keep Ryan Tannehill's spirits high and keep him still motivated. But I think the Miami Dolphins probably would, if you gave him a true serum, would say that, hey, we really don't know when we'll get Ryan Tannehill back. And I think that's the honest truth, that I can't say it, they can't say it for certainty that, hey, we're going to get Ryan Tannehill back on this day. And I think as a starting quarterback, that's troubling. So as far as next season, I wrote an article last week, I believe, on how long do the Miami Dolphins wait for Ryan Tannehill. And it's a common topic throughout the fan base. But my method of going about this, if I was the GM of the Miami Dolphins, and I'm not, I don't have that stress on my life. I don't wish that stress on my life. Chris Greer, keep your job. I do not need to do it. But if I was the Miami Dolphins GM for one day, and you said, what was my plan to fix the Miami Dolphins? I would say, look, I have seen the Kansas City Chiefs. I have seen the Houston Texans. I have seen all these teams who had a quarterback and decided that, hey, what we have is not good enough for us to win a championship, so we're gonna shoot our shot. And I'm a shot shooter. I don't know if I'm Steph Curry or if I'm Jamal Crawford or if I'm Hassan Whiteside when I'm shooting the three. It don't matter if I'm accurate or not. I'm shooting. So I'm shooting for my quarterback. And I look at this draft, and I know everybody says this is not a great draft for quarterbacks, and they might be right. I haven't even gotten into the class because we're in the middle of the season, but I know that you typically need your franchise quarterback to win championships. There are sometimes you can get away around it. I saw Denver win a Super Bowl in 2015 with a one-armed 38-year-old quarterback and Brock Osweiler sharing the reps. But typically you need a franchise quarterback who can win beyond the scheme, beyond the talent, to elevate you to the next level. So if I was the Miami Dolphins GM, decide that, hey, I go to Tannehill and I say, hey, man, if you want to come back, take a pay cut for me. Not anything crazy, but take a pay cut so we can get that salary number in, so we can bring in a few more free agents. And I'm going to let you know that we're going to bring competition in for you. Not saying that you can't be the starter. We'll give you every chance to be the starter. But our plan is to draft a rookie quarterback in the first round, and he's going to compete with you. And whenever he's ready and whenever he shows that he's better than you, he's going to lead this team. If you want to fight, if you want to be a competitor and hold them off, go for it. and you will be the starter as long as you prove that you can be the guy. But once he shows that he's better than you, he's going to be the guy. So that's my offer. If not, then I'm going to cut you and I'm going to get another veteran who's okay with that. That's how I would go about this at quarterback. I think that Ryan Tannehill is a starting caliber quarterback, somewhere maybe around 18 to 23rd best starting quarterback in NFL. He has the potential to be a top 15, borderline top 15 quarterback, but he's been really in that 18 to 23 realm. And that's average. That's Joe Flacco to me. And same thing that Joe Flacco that the Ravens did. They drafted Lamar Jackson, who will eventually be their franchise quarterback whenever Joe Flacco shows that he's not ready to lead this team anymore. So I do the same thing with Ryan Tannehill. And if he's not willing to take a pay cut, at least a snippet, then I cut him and get another veteran who's willing to do it. So that would be my plan as Chris Greer for a day. I have another question from Brandon Gibb, who says, "In what role do you think Parker will play for the remaining of the year?" I had this question from my ESPN bosses, Mike Clay, who runs the fantasy team out there. He asked me this question last week. Hey, do you think that Devontae Parker will get the same rep share as he did last week? No. That is quickly what I said, and that we saw last week. I think he had one or two catches. The only thing consistent about Devontae Parker in my time with him in Miami is that he has been inconsistent on what he brings on the field and as far as his health. He's an extremely talented player. He has a lot of potential. I hate that word. I told you guys I hate that word. But he has a lot of potential, quote unquote. But this is his fourth year at it. There are questions. I have questions about, just his tenacity, and then just his in this Miami Dolphins offense, you need somebody to step up and be that guy, somebody who can make plays consistently, somebody who can really elevate this receiving core that has been struggling with injuries, that has been struggling to really help out their quarterback, particularly Brock Osweiler, who has been struggling as of late. And Devontae Parker has showed signs of that, like in the Houston game, but then at other times he'll disappear. So I think that you'll get up and down performances from Devontae Parker. I wouldn't be surprised to see him have another maybe 1 or 2 100-yard games for the rest of the season. But I wouldn't expect any more. I wouldn't expect a run of consistency that makes you think that, hey, Devontae Parker can be a number one receiver. I think Miami's thought of that may be gone, and I think his hope at this point is being a complimentary receiver. And I think most likely the result is the Dolphins and Parker parting ways at the end of the season. So that's my thought. One more for Brandon Gibb, and then I'm going to go ahead and jump on a few NFL thoughts. I'm going to give you guys my predictions for the game. I'm going to tell you my X factors, and then we're going to get out of here, man. It's Thursday night when I'm recording this video. I've got some football to watch. I got to finish a story, and then hopefully I get everything that you guys need from me. So. Let's see. Brandon's asking with Tannehill's injuries and inconsistency, do you think Gase and management look to replace him? Okay, I did answer that question a little bit earlier. You probably asked that before I'd answered that. So we're going to let that hang. Felipe is saying the kid out of West Virginia looks good. Yeah, Will Greer, that's a guy that I really have seen him on a few Saturdays. I think that, I haven't done my full scouting yet, but I think that he looks good. He looks good, Yeah, he might be able to pass the Cam test, We'll see. Adam Gase loves swagger. So that if you're looking for quarterbacks and you're looking at who could fit in Miami, and if Adam Gase is going to be here in 2019, which I think, is most likely result at this point, you're looking for quarterbacks with swagger. Like Baker Mayfield was a perfect Adam Gase quarterback. Obviously, he went number one. Will Greer, I think, has a little bit of swagger, but look for guys with swagger. I like what I saw, just the raw talent out of the kid from Buffalo. The big kid from Buffalo, I think, a 6'7" kid. He's raw as a talent, but maybe you can shape him to being a good guy. So those two guys I've taken a look at, and obviously Justin Herbert's probably QB1 if he comes out, overall. So let's see what we got. Angelo is saying, does the defense step up and keep it up, as in the Jets' effort? I will pull my best Adam Gase analogy. You know what, man? Aaron Rodgers ain't the same as Sam Darnold. That was terrible. That was a terrible Adam Gase impression. But that's simply what it is. Aaron Rodgers is a different world than Sam Darnold. And the Dolphins have picked on Sam Darnold They have, knock knock, Big Bad Wolf Sam Darnold's house for the 2 games they've had against him. I think they forced 7 Sam Darnold turnovers. Then they faced him. So he's been just trick or treat for them every night. Presents, Christmas, all these holidays all at once. Sam Darnold's been for Miami. Aaron Rodgers, he's coming in probably angry. He's 3-4-1. He's in relax mode. Like a couple years ago when he said, "Relax, I got this." I expect that type of Aaron Rodgers. And just a hint to my prediction. I don't know if it's going to be pretty for the Miami Dolphins defense this week. I think that they showed a really good ability to bounce back after two really weak games, and they bounced back strong. But Aaron Rodgers ain't Sam Darnold, and I think this could be trouble for this defense, particularly because, like I mentioned with the Reshad Jones situation, they've had their mind elsewhere throughout the week. And Matt Burke talked about that today, about they spent too much time on the Reshad Jones situation. I'm not sure they're going to be fully prepared, and it could be trouble for that defense out there in Green Bay. So yeah, I will come back to a few guys' questions, particularly on the draft and other things. I want to talk a couple big topics across the NFL. I try to make this as spread out as I can. I know a lot of Miami Dolphins follow this, but I want to give tidbits across the NFL as much as I can. Tennessee shout out. I watched the Titans on Monday night against the Cowboys, and they look really impressive. I talked to Kevin Byard after the game about his Dallas TO celebration. That's a Philly kid who gave his, the standing on a star. He grew up watching a lot of those Eagles Cowboys rivalries and watching TO and all those things. And he kind of gave some love to the old legends. I know a lot of people are cranky about that. A lot of people are cranky about the Joe Horn celebration Mike Thomas did. I love it. I grew up watching Chad Ochocinco with his celebrations. I grew up watching T.O. with his celebration, Joe Horn, all these cats trying to top each other in celebrations. I love it. I'm not a part of this no fun league stuff that we be doing these days. I want to see guys celebrate. I want to see guys talk trash. I want to see all this, all of it. Give it more. I want more of it. So I'm all for that. That was one of the fun things I saw this week. Marcus Mariota looked extremely well, and I think Matt LaFleur's system is finally starting to click with him. And I'm excited to see what Tennessee does in the second half of the year. I think they can make a playoff push. Another thing is the Le'Veon Bell situation out there in Pittsburgh. All eyes on Le'Veon Bell in Pittsburgh going into next Tuesday. There's been a lot of back and forth on whether he'll come and report. He's in Pittsburgh working out, playing basketball. He's hooping. I don't know what Le'Veon Bell's J looks like, but the Steelers have been awaiting him for 9 or 10 weeks, and now we'll see. Tuesday is the deadline. Either he plays the season or he doesn't, based on whether he comes on Tuesday. So my prediction is that he pulls up around 3:30 on Tuesday and say, "What's good? What's up? What y'all trying to do?" And a report's ready to play. But we'll see what happens on that situation. So that's something I'm watching. And really quickly, I'm eager to see how this top of the NFC shakes out. I've covered the AFC for my entire NFL pro career, but I'm always intrigued about what goes over in the other conference. And I think there's a trio of really good teams out there, more than a trio, but 3 teams that I'm really interested in down the stretch are the LA Rams and what they're doing out there, the New Orleans Saints and what they're doing out there, and the Philadelphia Eagles. And those are 3 teams that I'm really excited to see what they do down the stretch. And I think they play each other in some round or fashion over the next few weeks. So I think that's something that's going to be really interesting to watch. And I think one of those 3 teams ends up representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. So I will give you guys my prediction. I know you guys are anxiously awaiting. 31-16 Green Bay this week over Miami. Aaron Rodgers is just too much. The Miami offense doesn't have enough. Brock Osweiler, Dow Logan said something interesting to me today. He said that, with the backup quarterback, with what we got this week, no turnovers is something that we're striving for. And they have to play a little bit like, hey, not lose the game instead of going to win the game, because they don't have the playmakers like Albert Wilson, and they know that Brock Osweiler can potentially lose a game by turning the ball over. So they're saying, hey, might not be a high potent offense with our backup quarterback. We just got to hang around and hope our defense plays extremely well. And sometimes it works like it did against the Jets, and sometimes, like I fear for the Dolphins this week in Lambeau. Aaron Rodgers is just going to be too much. That's a bad man, as Stephen A. Smith would say. That's a bad man. So that's my thoughts on that. My X factors, as always, three X factors, guys who are outside of the standard that I think they're going to make a big impact. And I'll pick a guy who's technically their number one receiver, but is a guy who has been really, really quiet over the last month and a half, and that's Kenny Stills. A guy who is their deep threat, their de facto number one, but dealing with injuries, dealing with not having a quarterback that can reach him down the field, he hasn't been the same guy. I think that this is a Kenny Stills game. I think if the Dolphins are going to make something happen, they're going to need some big plays. And I think the best big play weapon they have on this team right now is Kenny Stills. And one other nugget about Kenny Stills this week in Green Bay, his dad, Ken Stills, played 5 years for the Green Bay Packers. And that's a fun nugget we talked about with Kenny Stills today, Thursday in the locker room. He said his dad's going to be there. He's not sure if he's going to be wearing Packers gear or Dolphins gear, but I think that Kenny Stills wants to get a touchdown, maybe two, in front of his dad. So I think that it's going to be a big Kenny Stills game. He's my number one X factor for this game. My number two X factor for this game, and there was a lot of options I could have gone with in this scenario, but my number two X factor for this game will be who am I going to pick? I think that I am going to go with Reshad Jones. Obviously, he's one of the Dolphins' best players, and I'm going a little bit more well-known guys this week, but I think I have a reason for each of these guys. What does Reshad Jones do after this week? His name was in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. He is one of the Dolphins' most long-tenured players. He's going to be a guy that's extremely important for them to defend Aaron Rodgers and his ability to keep plays alive. I talked to T.J. McDonald today, and he said that Aaron Rodgers is the most difficult quarterback to defend in the NFL because of his ability to keep plays alive and his ability to change defenses based on what you have on the field. So, Reshad Jones, the challenge is on you, man. You said you're not a quitter. You said that everything's fixed in the locker room with you and your guys this week. Show it. Show that you're a Pro Bowl player. Show that you don't deserve to be taken off the field. Show that you're still an impact player who can change games. This is a Reshad Jones game. This is a challenge for Reshad Jones to show that you should be talked about based on your play on the field and not by your decision to stay off the field. So I think that Reshad Jones is the number two X factor in this game. And the number three X factor on this game is I'm trying not to mispronounce his name, but Valdez Scantler, the rookie receiver the Packers have out of South Florida. Hey, how you doing, Ma? Out of South Florida, who's playing extremely well opposite Devontae Parker. They have a good trio with him, Randall Cobb, and Devontae Parker, but the rookies came on really strong. He had a 100-yard game last week. He's probably going to end up facing the guy who's opposite on the corner side, Xavier Howard. Xavier Howard will get the treatment on Devontae Adams, and that matchup will be a blast to watch. And I'm excited to see what Xavier Howard does against Devontae Adams. But expect Aaron Rodgers to try to attack whoever's on that other side. Is it Minkah Fitzpatrick playing the boundary again, a position that he's not necessarily his best position? Or is it Bobby McCain, who struggled outside? Or is it somebody like Torrey McTyer or Cornell Armstrong, who haven't had a lot of defensive playing time? What Valdez Scanlon does on the opposite side is going to have a huge impact on this game, and I think that he could have a big day. So those are my three X factors for this game. Obviously, picking the Packers win. I'll get a couple of you guys questions, and then I got to get out of here, man. As always, thanks for the love. Thanks for you guys tuning in and howling with me. Out there with the Wolves. So I'm going to take a couple more questions, and we'll get out of here. Alex Dupont is asking, any chance Miami takes a mid-round chance with Milton from UCF if he comes out early? I think they'll look at every quarterback. Adam Gase is a quarterback guy. So if he decides that he's going to move on from Ryan Tannehill, or at the very least give Ryan Tannehill solid competition, I'm eager to see what type of quarterback he picks. This is his first chance as a head coach to pick his guy. And I think that, we're going to see exactly what Adam Gase values. Like I said, I think he values swagger. And I know that he values guys who can make plays. And, Milton, he's a guy who probably has some flaws, but you've seen him consistently win. He's a local kid, obviously, and I think that he'll definitely be under consideration. Brandon Gibbs saying with the locker room consistently being an issue under Gase. When does Ross finally get sick of losing his best players to a coach that seems stubborn and unable? Oh man, you going in on Gase today? Unable to deal with strong personalities. Adam Gase is a strong personality, and I think that he's referred to this a few times. Whether it's a Jarvis Landry situation, whether it's Jay Cutler, sometimes two hotheads don't go together well. But this particular situation, if you're referring to Reshad Jones, was more Reshad Jones versus Matt Burke situation, from what I understand. And Adam Gase wasn't really involved in it. But your overall question is on point. You know, you have to start asking, why are these guys feeling emboldened or feeling like they should step outside of the game field to make actions, whether it's Jordan Phillips, whether it's Jarvis Landry, whether it's this particular situation. I think that there are a lot of questions, and I think Adam Gase is still growing in this element of his head coaching job, about his ability to keep the culture going, keep the locker room strong, and having guys willing to talk to him when situations come arise. And I think that's something that he's still growing at. He's a guy who's an offensive mind, offensive genius, sort of that label that's been given to him for so long. He loves to call plays. He loves to scheme. And I think that he's still, I think he's capable, but I think he's still growing into his role as the CEO of the team. And so often that's the essential role of a head coach, being a CEO, being a crisis manager. And, I'm interested to see how he finalizes this picture and goes forward with that. So I think that's it for me today. I see your comment, Felipe. Thank you. We hang out from time to time. Me and Omar Kelly. So yeah, that was a cool. And thanks, Brandon, for the response. So as always, guys, follow me on my YouTube channel, Cameron Wolfe. We do this Howling with the Wolf Chap every Thursday. I'm gonna give a plug next Tuesday for folks who are journalists. I think I'm gonna do a special Howling with the Wolf. We're just gonna talk journalism topics. We're gonna talk about how to get into business, how I got into business. I'm going to share my story. And for those who are interested in how I got in this and how the business works, hopefully I can provide you guys a little insight. So that's going to be something on the bye week next week that I hope to do. And we're going to do that in a little earlier time in the week, Tuesday, in a TBD time. So look out for that if you're interested in that. And if not, then I'll see you in a couple weeks. Ciao.